Have you felt it? You know, that kind of low-grade, persistent buzz in the air that something in America just feels off. It's this sense of unease that's really hard to put your finger on. But it turns out it's not just a feeling. We're about to unpack the actual data from some key studies that show what's really going on behind this national mood. You know, it usually starts with a question just like this one. You're watching the news, or maybe just paying your bills, and you can't help but think, are the people in charge even living on the same planet as the rest of us? Well, if that thought has ever crossed your mind, you are not even close to being alone. In fact, you're in the massive majority, 79%. That's how many Americans, according to a recent SSRS study, basically say, yeah, politicians have no clue what my economic reality is like. That's a huge unifying idea in what feels like a really divided country. So let's dig into that. What does it really mean when nearly 4 out of every 5 people feel this way? Well, it creates this powerful shared sentiment, this feeling of being completely unseen and totally unheard. And get this isn't some fringe belief held by one little group. The data is crystal clear. This feeling cuts across just about every line you can possibly draw. We're talking generations, economic class, even political party. The vast majority of people feel this profound disconnect. And this quote from someone in the survey, man, it just brings that statistic to life, doesn't it? It's not about disagreeing on policy. It's about a feeling that there's just no empathy, that leaders just don't get the daily grind of making a budget work and stretching a paycheck to its absolute limit. Okay, but where is this feeling of being unheard actually coming from? This isn't just some abstract political thing. It's rooted in something very real, something tangible. That wallet squeeze we've all been feeling at the grocery store and the gas pump. And this is where we run into a really weird paradox, right? We keep hearing on the news that the national inflation rate is going down. So why is it that the stress Americans feel from inflation has actually gone up? That's according to a study from the National Institutes of Health. It doesn't quite add up. So what gives? Why the disconnect? Well, it's because even with inflation slowing down, prices are still painfully high, and that's forcing people to make some really tough choices. And we're not just talking about cutting back on luxuries here. More than a quarter of people are taking on second jobs or, and this is really alarming, delaying medical treatment just to stay afloat. Now, this constant economic pressure, it doesn't just stay in your bank account. When people feel squeezed and ignored, it starts to eat away at something way more fundamental. It creates a full-blown crisis of trust. Let me ask you this. Every year, Chapman University does this big survey on American fears. What do you think comes out on top? Is it crime? Natural disasters? Maybe another pandemic? I think the answer is hiding in quotes, just like this one. People are looking at all the constant political infighting, and it just makes it impossible to have any faith in the system. Your anxiety about money just gets worse when it feels like the people in charge are failing. And there it is. For the 10th year in a row, the #1 fear for Americans is corrupt government officials. I mean, that is just a stunning indictment. It's a fundamental lack of faith in the very people who are supposed to be leading. And this crisis of trust, it isn't just about right now. It casts this long, dark shadow, creating this deep anxiety for the future, especially for the younger generations who are about to inherit this whole mess. A recent Harvard Youth poll uncovered a number that really reveals how young Americans are feeling about the country's future. And it's a pretty sobering one. 64%. That's right. 64% of young Americans have more fear than they do hope for the future of U.S. democracy. Think about that. An entire generation is coming of age with this deep-seated pessimism about the country's political health. So, when you ask them who's to blame, the Harvard poll shows some really fascinating common ground and some pretty stark divides. Notice this. Both young Democrats and young Republicans put politicians right at the top of their blame list. But then, right after that, their views split big time on the role of the media, structural racism, and political correctness. And this anxiety about the future, it goes way beyond politics. It's actually seeping into the most personal life decisions you can make. An NIH study found that because of climate change, over half of young people are now questioning, or at least thinking about questioning, whether they should even have kids. I mean, wow. That is a profound signal from a generation that is grappling with some deep uncertainty. Okay, so we've connected the dots here, right? We've gone from this widespread feeling of being unheard to real economic pain, to deep political distrust, and all the way to a generation's fear for the future. So, what does it all mean? This really just leaves us with one massive question. When the vast majority of a country feels like no one is listening, and its young people are more afraid than hopeful about what's coming, what happens next? And that leads to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. Who is responsible for rebuilding all of that broken trust? Is it the leaders? The media? Is it up to the people themselves? The data we've looked at shows this anxiety is real, and it's everywhere. The answer to this question? Well, that's probably what's going to define America's next chapter.